innovation and human-centered leadership are reshaping education, healthcare, and the workforce of tomorrow. Today, I'm honored to welcome two remarkable leaders from Helms College in Georgia, visionaries who are redefining what it means to educate, empower, and elevate students in the digital age. First, we have Kristine, the Senior Vice President of Education Operations at Helms College. As the on-site chief executive, Kristine oversees every facet of the college's day-to-day operations, including academic affairs, enrollment, workforce partnerships, budgeting and compliance, reporting directly to the president and CEO of Middle Georgia and CSRA Goodwill. Under her leadership, Helms College has seen transformative growth, expanding from just 48 students to more than 280 in less than a year. She has led digital modernization initiatives, including replacing CRM and LMS systems, launching online programs, and expanding industrial and skilled trades education to new campuses. With over 2 decades of experience in higher education leadership, Kristine is recognized for building high-performing teams, driving excellence in accreditation, and aligning education with regional workforce needs. Her career includes senior roles with Arizona College of Nursing, Ross Education, and the YMCA, where she championed student success across multiple campuses. Kristine was recognized as Administrator of the Year by the Florida Association of Career Colleges and Schools in 2023 and received the Corporate Passion Award from Arizona College in 2022. She also served as an elected official in Michigan, completing a 6-year term on the Richmond Community School Board of Education. Kristine holds an MBA from the University of Phoenix and a Bachelor of Business Administration from Central Michigan University. She is currently completing her Doctor of Education in Leadership at Liberty University, with a focus on digital transformation and faculty engagement in career education. Joining Kristine is Dr. Derk Riechers, the Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs at Helms College and a nationally recognized leader in higher education innovation. Dr. Riechers brings a passion for transforming lives through academic excellence, inclusion, and access, especially for students from underserved backgrounds. Before joining Helms, he served as Vice President of Academic Affairs at Northeastern Technical College in South Carolina, where he led strategic initiatives advancing student engagement, workforce readiness, and institutional innovation. He also co-founded Vertical Education, an organization dedicated to expanding access to high-quality online learning, where he served as Chief Operating Officer. Dr. Riechers is a recipient of the NISOD Excellence Award and the GWEN Mundy Endowment Doctoral Scholarship, and he's an alumnus of several prestigious leadership programs, including Harvard's Instructional Leadership Program and the League for Innovation in the Community College Executive Leadership Institute. He has served on the boards of Golden, the Global Online Learning Development and Extended Network, and the Instructional Technology Council. He earned his doctorate in higher education with specialization in teaching and learning from Brenner University, holds an MBA and postmaster's certificate in college teaching from Capella University, and a master's in human resources development and leadership from Webster University, where he graduated with honors. He is also a proud member of Kappa Delta Pi, Phi Kappa Phi, and Delta Mu Delta Honor Societies. Together, Kristine and Dr. Riechers represent the future of education leadership, blending innovation, technology, and mission-driven purpose to prepare students for meaningful careers in a rapidly changing world. In today's conversation, we'll explore how they are leading digital transformation in higher education, building inclusive learning ecosystems, and integrating AI and workforce-aligned strategies to meet the evolving needs of today's learners. So let's dive in. Because this episode is all about education innovation, digital transformation, and the human side of leadership, with Kristine Furtaw and Dr. Derk Riechers of Helms College. So please welcome our two guests today. Thank you so much, Kristine and Derk, for being here today.
Our pleasure.
Is there anything that I have not added that you would like to add from what I've just read?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, perfect.
Nice. So, we'll start with my first question here. Kristine, Helms College has undergone an impressive transformation under your leadership, expanding from 48 to over 280 students in less than a year. What was your guiding vision behind that growth, and what were the first steps you took to make it happen?
Um, when I first came to Helms College, I was just so excited about the vision and how they could really give to the community and how they could really advance, but they were really kind of stuck in a 2000 mode of their technology. So we really worked initially just to grow those relationships so that as we transformed into technological advancements in the college with the CRM and the different initiatives, the, the team would trust that this was a good move and that it was a move in the right direction for growing the college and being able to take the students and the community to the next level in their educational dreams as well. So really coming alongside the CEO, who's a very much a visionary, seeing that he wanted to grow the campus, expand the campus, both in Augusta and in Macon, and then also have that economic impact in the community. So really partnering with all of those things to build that trust and then growing those different electronic and digital modalities so that we could actually experience success in those areas in tracking.
Very interesting. Um, I have another question here for you,
Absolutely.
Kristine. Um, it's the second one was, what have you learned about leading through digital and organizational change while keeping faculty, staff, and student engaged?
Oh my gosh, probably the biggest lesson I've learned is just really about how to support people when they're going through the stress of change. When we implemented tools like Canvas, Element 451, and Course Key, we're working on ebook technology and integrations, really making sure that everyone feels like they're part of that process. They have a voice in that process, celebrating those wins as we have them, even if they're little. And then also really having everybody involved all the way from discovery calls on what platforms we were going to implement to testing those platforms, shaping the workflows, and then also you know, finding out what are their pain points as they go along and being able to have good relationships built so that we can talk about the good things that are happening, the bad things that are happening, and the ugly things that we might see in the future that might come up so that we can avoid any of those stop gaps for customer service to each other and to our students.
That's good to know. Dr. Riechers, I have a question here for you. You've built your career around innovation and inclusion in higher education. How do you personally define transformative leadership in today's rapidly changing academic landscape?
That's a great question. And I think that the last part of that is so key is the rapid change in the landscape. And from my experience, the only way to do that is to focus on vision and innovation. And just not vision from the institution, but vision from the community that the institution serves is what is the goal of the community and how can the college or institution meet that goal? And then that really starts internally with innovation. From globalization and increase of technology use, such as AI, really understanding how the vision and alignment matches the community's mission is so important because if those two are not in alignment, it's very difficult for both entities to support each other. And with communities growing, especially with high tech firms going into a lot of rural communities because of a lot of incentives, having that vision and innovation alignment with leadership is so important because it expands the workforce development space And also, it entices industry to come in when they see they have an institution that's being led by visionaries, because then it supports their development and growth as well.
I concur with that. Leadership today seems to require balancing innovation with stability, and that leads perfectly into the question of managing change itself. Dr. Riechers, another question here. You've served in both student and academic services. How do you balance academic excellence with accessibility and student success?
Sure. This way to really understand both sides of the spectrum, because normally in an institution, you have a vice president of academic affairs, you have a vice president of student services. Now, a lot of institutions are blending those models together and having one executive oversee both roles because they just complement each other so well. And the only way to really tackle that responsibility is understanding the student holistically. Every student is different at the institution. Every student has a different need and they come from a different background. So applying a generic, and I'll use this term as I like to cook and eat, recipe to all the students is not going to work well, because all the learners require a different skill set to help them achieve their goals. I like to say I never met a stranger, because I think building relationships, not only internally with staff and faculty, is important, is understanding where students are coming from. And realistically, a lot of students have a lot going on outside of their academic and student life space. So, really, the institution matching those needs or providing any type of help is really important on the social side of a college experience and also academically.
Yes, and I can attest to that on so many fronts, um, because I have experience teaching as well. And I understand the notion that not just one way actually does it for every single student. And that this is where comes the multicultural component aspect to the teaching and the receiving the what's being taught by students, because the one fit all size does not really do the work. So I totally understand that. And this is where I don't know, maybe if you have that at your school, ethnomathematics. This is where it makes a lot of sense, because students from different backgrounds have a great deal to do with different ways of learning mathematics and different ways of understanding different concepts in the subject. That's a very good point there. Kristine, I have a question here for you. Your doctoral research focuses on digital transformation and faculty engagement. What are the most prominent challenges institutions face when modernizing systems like LMS or CRM platforms?
Yeah, most of the time it's not the technology. It's really that mindset shift so that people can understand that the technology isn't criminal. It's going to help them. It's going to enhance their ability to really get in front of that student more and have more touch points with the student. I think that, those legacy habits, those fear of change, and just
Hmm.
if there's unclear communication, it can really cause a lot of resistance. So those phased rollouts, the solving the real daily frustrations right at the time when the student has it, so that they aren't standing in front of a group of students and saying, I don't know how to do this, because then
Yeah.
that they feel uncomfortable. So really the institution modernizing their systems and really hand holding with that is so important, but it's typically not the technology itself. It's usually the mindset shift that has to make it happen a little bit easier for everybody.
That's true, and I totally agree with that too. It's fascinating how those systems not only change workflows but also shape culture and teaching, because you got a great many students at times who sit in front of a class, and when they have to deal with different forms of technology, then they become a little bit lost in a way, you would say.
Right. And if the faculty or the administration isn't supporting that new technology that's going into place, the blame is shifted to the technology. The technology doesn't work. The system doesn't
Right,
work.
right.
It's not the user. It's typically the technology.
Right,
But
that's true.
actually, if you back it up a little bit further, it's probably the implementation. and the
Yes,
training that happens beforehand.
that, that's for sure. Dr. Riechers, you co-founded Vertical Education, which focuses on expanding access to quality online learning. What inspired that venture and what lessons did you carry into your leadership at the Helms?
Yeah, what really was the cusp of founding that company with Lamar Young and her was a gap in the space of having a true scholar practitioner. We found that a lot of universities needed help with accreditation or academic affairs or online college operations. And they were a little frustrated because all their outreach was formal organizations where the folks, yes, did have experience in higher ed, but it was far once removed. They weren't currently practicing within higher ed. So we kind of figured out that gap based upon our own frustrations at the institution we were at. It was a successful venture. We had the company or organization for a couple years. I don't know how many colleges and universities we've helped. I lost track at one point, but it was nice to hear when we went on the campus and spoke with the executive board or the board of the organization. One of the biggest things they kept saying was it's nice to actually see people that's in the field and also giving recommendations instead of just 100% consultants who hasn't been in higher ed for the last 5, 10, 15 years. So I think that provided a lot of value to our consulting services of having that direct experience. And it also developed some great relationships, and also the relationships when we spoke to folks in the institutions, I felt they could relate to us quite quickly because we were speaking the same language. And this part of that question, how it carries over or relates to Helms College is bar none. It's the relationship building, is understanding people, and is having that emotional intelligence. We all carry weight that's heavy on our shoulders, even though we might not see it from our coworkers. We don't know what's happening at home, in their personal life, in their social life. And some people carry that weight quite well with always a smile on their face. So that leadership is always being kind to people. And I always like to say a smile costs nothing.
Right. Innovation clearly runs through both of your approaches, especially when it comes to bringing technology and education together.
100%.
Kristine, many institutions invest in technology but struggle with adoption. What strategies have worked best for building digital confidence among faculty and staff?
We struggle with that every day. It's never ending. We bring on new adjuncts. They may stay with us for a short time. So I think the biggest thing that we can do as leaders is have good systems in process. And so that we have a training process, we have these checklists, we have these things, but we're not just handing it to the individual, we're actually sitting alongside them and partnering with them. So we like to build peer-led learning groups for the different initiatives that we're going to invest in so that we have a super user. And then that super user can be a go-to person. Nobody really wants to go to their supervisor and say, I don't have any idea what I was just taught. Can somebody help me? But this allows them to have this other individual that they can go to. And then again, I'm all about celebration. I think that that's super important. So really, even if it's just a faculty member that's mastering a report or analytics or discovering that they can really actually use Canvas for grading tests automatically, we're going to talk about that win. Oh, so and so just found out that they can do this skill, and this is a wonderful thing. And so then that leads somebody to say, oh, I kind of want to be the person who discovered something. So then they're looking into more digital confidence and growing and winning all at the same time. And so they then feel safe learning, that culture shifts, and then we can get that team to really investigate into solutions on their own, and have that critical thinking and problem solving that takes place when you're dealing with that. building of digital confidence. So giving them the tools, giving them resources, and I think the great onboarding are those key areas.
Right. As an extension to that question, do you think retention of those faculty members might be an impediment, or if it's not an impediment, but do you think you have a retention program or what you've described earlier? Is that a retention program to see in what way you can hold on to those staff members?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Early in my career when I was with Ross Education, I actually did faculty training. I brought that program to Ross Education as part of what they did to retain faculty. I think that, or I know through just living it day to day in my career that if we can't help instructors have a really good foundation in that classroom when they first start, especially in technical education, because people are trained to be a nurse or they're trained to be a HVAC technician or a chef. They need to learn how to be a teacher. There's, skills that are wrapped around that.
Right.
People go to school for years to become good teachers. And so we have to fast track that process so that we can retain those skilled professionals that have to teach those in-demand careers to individuals, not having teaching be their first career.
Right. Good. Building that confidence is so essential. So,
It is.
yes, and it naturally leads us to one of the most talked about tools in education today, artificial intelligence. Dr. Riechers, as AI becomes increasingly integrated into education, how do you see it enhancing teaching, learning, and workforce readiness?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Claude. That's a hard topic. You go to any virtual conference or any on-site conference. There's a few different tracks, and it looks like the tracks that are focusing on AI, it's either standing room only, or if it's a Zoom, it's waiting room only, I like to say. But really, where I see this is putting it at scale. And I think that's really the most important part that a lot of people are missing, that I've seen that gap in conferences, is they talk about all these AI tools and availability. For instance, I have a 7-year-old, and I found this great little piece that had 100 AI related tools for kids, and one of them is Minecraft. And you can change Minecraft and build it on out with AI. So it's 100 activities. And I thought about it and I said, well, it's personalizing AI at scale. And I think that that's so key, because when institutions talk about AI, and if you have a large faculty base or even a small faculty base, sometimes you get a wide eye, open mouths, like, oh, this is too complicated. And folks aren't looking at it at the scale perspective of how can it help me in my current day-to-day activities, and how can it be applied. And I always used to like to use the example is way back when, not to tell my age, but in Microsoft Word, you had that little paperclip, and his favorite name was Clippy. And he jumped around the screen and wanted your help. And well, that was a form of AI at a very high level at scale. And I think we're losing that a little bit when we're talking about AI, because that was a very personalized approach. And a lot of these models, folks need to figure out how do we tone that down to make it at scale so it is personalizable on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. It's exciting to think about AI's potential, mainly when those innovations translate into better outcomes for students. And
Yeah.
I remember I had a presentation on that when that pertains to higher education, and it's a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Kristine, can you share a specific example of how data-driven decision making or digital innovation improved student outcomes or institutional performance at Helms?
Yeah, it's been incredible for us to be bringing on an AI-driven CRM in our admissions area. And so that has really allowed us to be able to to drill down exactly where our students are coming from, what are their interests? What are their program interests? How can we help them? What are their obstacles? And be able to look at that. But even more when they come into school, to be able to retain the student, we've been able to use real-time data to really identify those at-risk students early. We can intervene proactively, and Helms College is underwritten by Goodwill Industries of Middle Georgia and the CSRA. And so they provide some wraparound services for our students that are identified at risk. And so they can then, we can then, maybe it's hunger, maybe that student's hungry. And so we can, get them connected to maybe SNAP benefits, or maybe transportation is the issue, or care for children. We can provide them with those wraparound services so that they can continue on and really have that persistence to get through. And then we also look at their attendance. I mean, attendance is something that we use as a data-driven tool all the time. Are they always late on Tuesday morning? Well, Latchkey isn't open until a later time on Tuesday morning. So how do we, do we then register them in a later class next time? Or how do we make those adjustments so that they can still achieve success even though life is still happening in the background? So we're marrying that data with those obstacles and trying to overcome.
Yes, that's very good because that helps at least gathering that those data allow for the school to use that as analytics to say, you know what, we can focus our energy in that area here and there, and then that really helps with retention. I can imagine that's a great thing to do.
Another thing is just even knowing that if a student has a tough time in this particular class,
Right,
we know that there's a larger propensity that they're not going to pass maybe their certification exam at the end. So what
right,
do we do between the time that they didn't do well in this class and the time that they actually have to take their exam? Do we layer in some tutoring? Do we layer in some extra, peer tutoring? Is it, outside tutoring? Is it maybe even suggesting retaking a class or a
right,
course?
right. All those options really make sense. Those outcomes highlight the power of strategy and vision, which brings us to Helms College strong connection to workforce development.
Hmm.
Um, Kristine, that's for you again. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm
you know,
holding you hostage on those questions.
that that's okay. I love how we impact our community. I love what we do both in Augusta and in Macon. And now, with our regional retail operations management program, other communities are going to be affected as well. But, we impact workforce development. We have two campus locations, and the online division, Goodwill Industries is underwriting us. They have all these retail stores. All Goodwills are independent from the next. So we're Middle Georgia and the CSRA. We have somewhere around 40 stores. Um, and then our students can work in those stores. So if they're retail operations folks, they're impacting the community that way. We have we participate in what we call immersive learning. And so we have an Edgar's Hospitality Group division as well that includes a wholesale bakery for our baking and pastry students. We have a bakehouse that has decadent desserts.
Right.
We have a fine dining restaurant, a private club, a farm, and several conference venues, and that people can rent for special events. And then our culinary students are using those as immersive learning opportunities. So all that income is just rising in the community, providing those jobs and those careers so that we can get people out of that working poor category. And then, we work through a lot of philanthropy and grants. And then working with those partner organizations as well as, stirring economies and workforce development. But then we're also looking at developing a good facilities group that will actually work on the skilled trades programs that we have so we can integrate some of that into the community. The hospitals all have air conditioning units and heating units and all of those things, refrigeration, ice machines. We're also looking at a good health clinic so that we can serve the community and help individuals that otherwise wouldn't be able to get to a doctor's situation. And we work with partnering uh, clinics in the area that work with indigent population as well. And so all of these things really drive that workforce and that community involvement. And then we also partner with every single one of our programs has to have an advisory committee. So these employers come around the table and they say, hey, this is going really well, or we need our students to have a little bit more of this technology or that technology. And it just allows us to be able to really work with the community, because if we don't have career outcomes and people aren't getting employed from the programs that they're attending at a technical college, we're in trouble. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. That's our big win, is
Exactly.
graduation. That's what really fires me up and gets me excited about what we're doing, is when I have students come back and they say, hey, I'm working and I couldn't afford a car. I Ubered to school or I caught a ride. And now out there, that red ride out there, that's mine. And I'm excited for them.
Yes,
I'm
that's a
super
big
excited.
accomplishment. Yes, that's very good. So it shows that you guys stay, and at least the school stays in line with industry and in partnerships with and make that possible. Um,
Exactly.
Derek, you've worked closely with workforce and community partners. What role do collaborations with employers or nonprofits play in shaping student pathways?
You know, with those relationships, I think it's always important to start at the end instead of the beginning. And what I mean by that is organizations are evolving. A lot of manufacturing organizations with lathes and CNC machines, they're having robots control 3 or 4 units at once instead of 4 individual operators. So I think understanding the end goal of an organization and then working backwards from there. Because if they say in the next 2 years, we want to have humanoids and artificial intelligence control our CNC machines. Well, if you then go back to your institution and your curriculum isn't aligning with that, those graduates in 2 years are going to have a very difficult time finding employment. As what Chris mentioned is making sure having those relationships with those advisory councils is so important, because businesses are looking at ways for lean manufacturing and lean management and increasing production with a little cost. So understanding what their strategic vision is, and then bringing it back to academics to always evolve the curriculum. And I like to use the Blockbuster story. Back in the day, Blockbuster was awesome. I loved all the treats by the cash register store. I think they did that on purpose for me, because I always grabbed way too many. But they were flying high even when those other competitors came about. They thought they didn't have to change their model. And we all know what happened afterwards. So, yes, even though if an institution is having current success, high graduation rates, great retention, students are getting employed and keeping that employment, it's still having those conversations at the highest level in those organizations is, can we partner with your 5 year strategic plan? This is our institution's 5 year strategic plan. Is there some alignment between the two? Because we want to make sure we're training our students to meet your end goals of your organization, so you have an educated workforce to select.
Right. Partnerships are powerful, but the real magic happens when students from all backgrounds can access those opportunities. Um, that's more, I'm sure it's very likely so with the demographics that attend your school there.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we do
Yes.
have quite a few underserved population in our area. And so we really are working to have our access be intentional for our students, to really make sure that we have those wraparound services for that underserved population, but also really understanding that we need to stop and listen to their story, because we don't know what they're bringing each day. And there's a certain element of trust. I don't look like the majority of my students. The majority of my students are African American. And so there's a level of trust there as well. It's real, it's culpable, it's there. And so we have to identify that. And so we need to stop and listen. And I think that that's been, allowed us to be able to serve in our community better. I think that the flexible scheduling, stackable credentials, there's no wrong door when you come into Helms College. If you need help with ESL or GED, or you want a certificate, or you want to get a degree, we have a door or a path for you. And if we do things right, it might not be right now that it's maybe things aren't lining up right now, but if we do things right, the door is open and they feel welcome. And that's really the biggest part of us meeting the underserved population in our area.
That's good. And how about the digital learning environment part for those groups?
You know, we're actually working right now. I'm so happy to have Derk working with me. He's such a great partner, and we're working diligently to be able to serve our students with a laptop when they come on board so that we can go completely ebook for our students, and then giving them problem solving. So if the internet's not working at their home, maybe they don't have access to it, can we use a grant to get them a hotspot? Can we have them find solutions to maybe be at McDonald's or a library, give them the opening times, um, have the school open as a safe place to learn outside of their normal day as well. And so the technology difficulties are real. But we need to identify them early and let the student know that everything's figure outable. We can figure it out, we'll get a solution, and we'll help them to get across that stage at the end of the program.
Right. Access is one side of the equation,
It
equity and
is.
inclusion are the other. Derk, what practical steps can institutions take to promote equity and inclusion through digital learning platforms and curriculum design?
You know, it always starts at step one. A lot of institutions get wound up in all the latest gear and software and technology. It's just like football. The most game-changing thing in a football game is a fumble, is a change of possession, and they teach that at a very early age for a football player's career. And a lot of colleges are missing that, but Helms is not. It's really starting with when a student walks in the door, is it accessible? Who are they seeing? What is that pathway for them to even talk to somebody to receive information at an institution? So, a lot of times, it's important just to take a step back and figure out, putting on that student's lens, that if I'm signing in, for instance, in an LMS system, and I see the course, is it easily navigatable? Can I understand the syllabus? And better yet, is there a definition of what a syllabus is? And that's one thing I think a lot of institutions take for granted. We think students from any type of background knows what a syllabus is, knows what an office hours is, and we throw around these terms in the digital space and think students know, oh, it's a syllabus folder. I should click on that, and that gives me the contract of the course outline, grading criteria, and all that stuff. However, that's not inclusive and equitable, because we are then saying that every student understands what that word means. So it's really putting on a few different lenses and thinking about, does this make sense, not just for me, but for all that students? And that can be tricky and very difficult, because you even see at the national stage that football players still fumble the ball. And that has not been resolved. So that is an ongoing issue at all institutions, and we see it still happening,
Yeah.
is taking a step back and from the instructional design standpoint of not how material is being presented in the curriculum process or development stage, is taking a step back even further and thinking about, can my students even find the link to access their portal, to access the LMS system, to access how to click on an email button to email the teacher? So some serious conversations need to happen on that regard, because a lot of times we get caught up on all the flashy stuff and forget that going back to basics, I like to call it, is always important and leads to success with a strong foundation.
Right. And sometimes what we even conceptualize as what basic might not really be basic enough for somebody else. So that's one tricky part in the teaching environment.
Is understanding the word basic and then understanding the lens a student sees the institution. I
Yeah.
remember early my first year teaching, I was teaching the School of Business, and my business dean, he said, Dirk, we need to take a little field trip. And I got up and he said, stop, turn around. And I said, oh, this is a short field trip. He said, besides candy wrappers and Coke cans on your desk, and you still see that today in my office, is your office accessible? Is it inviting to students? Because you have to put on the lens of a student. They're anxious talking to their teacher or professor. Is it welcoming just at the doorway to even come into your office?
Yes, yes, that's important. Inclusion doesn't just happen in the classroom, the culture and mindset of the institution also shape it. Kristine, faculty engagement is often the heartbeat of an institution. How do you foster a culture that values innovation while preserving academic integrity?
Well, that's a good question. Often I will say that your paper that you have on your desk will always be there. You will always have work to do on your table, but your people, they have a choice to move. Your paper only moves if you move it. So walking around, building relationships, making sure that your faculty knows that they're seen and heard really allows that engagement. um, Finding out about their families, their interests, the why they come to work every day, what's their motivator, making those connections, because at the end of the day, the student isn't going to remember my name. They're not going to remember Dr. Dirk's name, but they're going to remember their teacher's name.
Yeah.
If they don't remember their name, they'll remember their features or something about them. Oh,
Okay.
it's a lady who wore the red glasses, whatever that feature is. So we need to make sure that our faculty is pumped up, they're ready to teach, they're front facing, because they are our best referral for students feeling comfortable to come into the school next time.
Okay.
They're the people who, really we need to prioritize that shared governance with them, making sure that they're recognized for what they're doing. They're on the front lines every day.
Yes.
And they really do set a lot of tone for what's happening in our campus and the culture of the student, and, making sure that they have access to that ongoing professional development, but also understanding when we have all those strict compliance things that come into place, like they have to get their grades in on time, and they sometimes they can't lead with a sympathetic heart, because our students are on clock hour programs. And I, as an instructor in a classroom, I can't determine whether the cat got ran out the front door, the child got sick on me, or I got stopped by the police on the way, are more important than the other.
Yeah,
If you're not there, you're absent.
correct.
And that's hard on teachers, and it's hard for them to learn and not lead from their heart, because many of them are working in occupations that are like allied health and nursing, and that's who they are. And so really having them understand that that can put us in compliance jeopardy.
Yes.
That can put us in a position where we're not really creating um an an equal playing field at some level for what success looks like when you graduate from Helms College. We know that
Right.
you have to meet these certain requirements. Sure, we're going to help you. We're going to look at you as an individual student to get there, but in the scope of things, there's still some non-negotiables that we have to land in between. And so really, being around, interacting,
Show
applauding
concerns.
innovation and partnering with them on their journey as they grow in their craft too.
Yeah. That balance between innovation and integrity depends on so much on faculty development and support.
It really does.
Yeah. Um, Dr. Riechers, how do you approach professional development and help faculty embrace new teaching models and technology tools?
That's a good question, especially in today's landscape is what do faculty need to know more of? What do they need to more less of? And what is the critical thing? And I always like to start is what are they missing, right? And what are they missing from the perspective of the tools they're using today? For instance, when you sign on to Microsoft Outlook or any email exchange server, there are a host of tools right there. And those tools are often overlooked because we're focusing on the next big thing. So when I approach faculty development, I like to see is are we using the tools we have in front of us well? And if we are, we can move to the next step. But if we're not, let's focus on the stuff in front of our face. And I think that's missed a lot of times because within email servers and email accounts, there's a whole bunch of different things you can do to make sure you're replying to people, you're organizing your inbox, you're organizing your daily tasks on your calendar. And those tools are often overlooked because people might find it embarrassing to say, oh, I need some more help organizing my electronic calendar. I know there's some really good tools within this software piece. How do I do it? So it really starts at the level one, I like to call it, and then figuring out how can we expand upon that. Because if we're not doing the basic stuff well, we can't go forward. I remember this fun interaction when a student in my class, this gentleman came up to me and he said, Mr. Riechers, can I get some extra credit? And I said, you need to do your normal credit before we can do extra credit. And so that's how I like to think about faculty development is what are we doing now to better suit our students and what can we improve upon to make the educational experience possible? I think it's important when you look at faculty development is what is the audience you're trying to look at? What are you trying to solve? You can development and training out of the wazoo, but what are the learning outcomes of this session? What is the goals? And what is the follow-up, right? We all attend faculty development, we all attend learning and training conferences, and we leave there, we're all hyped up, but there's no turnaround, there's no follow-up, there's no how have you used it now for 6 months? Many institutions, you have faculty development or staff and employee training, and every session is different, right? You're learning a new tool or a new technique or new pedagogy for learning. There isn't never simply, okay, we learned this, let's see how we've used it now for the last 6 months. It's always on to something new, instead of figuring out what we have learned, how we add value to that piece.
Yes, keeping track of these things really are very important. And acknowledging your audience, like you mentioned earlier, I think that's a key in determining how to shape the learning process. That's
Yes,
very important.
100%.
Um, Supporting faculty through that journey can be both rewarding and challenging, especially during times of rapid change. And we have been seeing that in rapid change technologically. We've been having quite a lot of that. Kristine, what advice would you give to emerging academic leaders about managing change fatigue during times of transformation?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that remembering that we're all human. We all need rest. We all need recovery. It's really how we pivot, and analyze, is this working? Not being too proud to say, hey, maybe we need to go in a different direction. Because it will all work out in the end. You just need to be able to pivot quickly. But when, something does go wrong and you're knocked down, it's going to happen. Get back up, dust yourself off. Tomorrow's a new day, but really find ways to unwind as well, to
Right.
move away from that work setting. Like mine is being with my family. I have a Jeep. I'd love to go jeeping, rock crawling out in nature. People don't necessarily expect that of me, but that's my way of kind of unwinding. It might be dipping your toes in the sand at the beach.
Yes.
But that little bit of self-love goes a long way, to rejuvenating you to be able to see things a little bit differently, as a leader. And good shopping trip never hurt anyone to fight some off some fatigue. But I think that the biggest thing for advice for emerging leaders would be to communicate early, when you need assistance. Take someone out on that limb with you. Celebrate success, celebrate progress, even if it's small.
Right.
Um, to lead with empathy. Change fatigue is real. And people need to understand, to that they need others to walk alongside them in that process of the change. Nobody won anything alone.
Right.
Typically, when we take someone on that journey with us, it's someone that can laugh with you, cry with you, and then celebrate with you once the success is achieved. So just small steps count towards success, and to not some days just don't take it so seriously.
That's right. Great advice. And speaking of leadership growth, both of you have evolved through impressive career journeys. Um, Dr. Riechers, you've served across multiple leadership roles, from faculty to vice president. How has your leadership philosophy evolved?
Oh man, that's a that is a good question. I took some, time to reflect based upon, as starting out in higher education as an adjunct, continuing ed instructor, and then matriculating from a few different staff roles in the college and staff and faculty and department chair and dean, and up we go. Um, my philosophy has changed to a purpose and opportunity is at the heart of every decision. And what I mean by that is what is the purpose are we here for? And how is it going to impact everyone around us? Like Chris mentioned, change fatigue is very real, and change because just of change is not a good idea as well. Is what is the purpose of the change and how does it impact folks? Because institutions made up of people, right? And everybody has an opinion about that change. And some people complain of the way things are. And then when you change it, they complain about the change. So then there's no middle ground to speak of. So you really have to focus on what is the purpose of the change and then what is the opportunity. And I think that's such a big part is why are we changing for this or that opportunity? And I think that's the missing link is the opportunity to make an impact to help our students or our staff members. And it can be as simple as we are going to change our operating hours, we're going to change our office design, is always presenting an opportunity. And sometimes those opportunities don't have to have dollar amounts built in to those opportunities. I'm a big proponent, I love technology. But there's been quite a few studies in the peer review literature that a good old fashioned suggestion box with a pen and paper and hearing about what needs to happen works so much better than these expensive focus groups that institutions spend lots of money on,
Mhm.
fancy consultants, fancy strategic planning
Yeah.
with whiteboards and sticky note exercises, where simply asking somebody, if you were in charge for a day, what would you change? And
Right.
that goes back to a very early question when you so kindly asked me about vertical ed and that organization. One of the last exercises we did with all our clients, and we work with very large universities and colleges, 30,000 plus, and we work with very small institutions, 2,000 and less students. And we asked the faculty and staff that we handed out one sticky note, and we said, if you were the president for a day, what would you change? So we collected all those sticky notes, we handed it to the president and said, here are the voices of your employees. I know it's not in a fancy binder. Some of these sticky notes have bad erase marks because they scribbled through them, but this is authentic and this is real. And I think that's how leadership should be.
Exactly. Growth like that comes from reflection and purpose. And I'd love to hear about milestones that really mattered along the way. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Kristine, looking back over your career, what initiative or milestone makes you most proud and why?
It's hard to narrow it down to one. So I'm going to be a little bit greedy and tell you shortly about two. And the first was just the transformation that we had when I was with Ross Education. We built that organization from 10 campuses to over 50 campuses. That during that phase, I like to say I was kind of like ahead of the curve because I was so wanting to be paper free. And so we, built databases that had all of our tests in it so that we had a standardized curriculum. We actually brought about, I think I was one of the first adopters on Zoom when it first came out to do regional training and make that just a standard way of being able to meet the masses of growth that we were seeing. Um, so I'm really forever grateful to the powerful leaders that were at Ross that really developed me
Right.
and really gave me a seat at a table and a voice at a young age. And to be able to grow so that I could bring that to now, today, being at Helms College and the transformation that we're seeing, this is my most proud moment is being able to work at Helms College and being able to see them grow and change and be trendsetters in what they're doing. And, the sky's the limit for Helms College right now. We have a very innovative leader, James Stiff. He embraces education, he embraces stackable credentials, he embraces taking people from the working poor to having meaningful roles in society, and really a hand up is part of his strategic vision as well. And so I'm just really proud to be part of that. And the group that's, we're bringing on board now, Dr. Dirk being one of them, to really embrace the technology that AI isn't a criminal in education, it's an asset.
Yes.
Um, to have that growth and that proof that mission-driven colleges can really be impactful to the community and really operationally excellent.
Yes, achievements like that often become foundations for future impact and recognition.
Absolutely.
Right. Um, Dr. Dirk, you've received several national awards for leadership and innovation. How does recognition influence your motivation and future goals?
One thing is my wife makes it clear. She says, take all that stuff with you and put it in your office somewhere because I want to decorate the house. So if you go into my office, I have it stacked up on my walls. And I think sometimes seeing that is a lot of people when we talk about trying to always improve oneself, or you see somebody successful. Um, my approach is simply waking up and trying to be a better person than I was yesterday. I think we get caught up in comparing with each other, right? You know, we see a fancy car on the road, or we see a big house, or whatever it might be, a luxury bag or designer items, and we try to our human nature is comparison, right? Like how do we get there? What are they doing? And I'll quote the famous singer, you know, Michael Jackson. It's the man in the mirror, right? It's just waking up and trying just to be the best you can be.
Yeah.
And that's what my goal is. And sometimes it's a little goal, right? It's looking down at my speedometer and not trying to speed so much, right? Or doing something simple is just self-reflection and self-development and being humble. I remember and Chris is almost at this point herself. Is I remember when I finished my dissertation defense, the final defense, and I was so proud of myself. And my wife humbled me a lot. She says, "You know, you still have to take out the trash. Here it is." So it's being humble, and that's why titles to me is nothing. I just tell people, just call me Derk. We're all the same here. But just looking at yourself in the mirror and figuring out how we can be the best you. And I think if we all did that, which a lot of people do, the world would be in a better place.
I totally agree. And a great many times we tend to see our titles as a degree of superiority over others, which is really totally false. So it's unfortunate when these things happen. People are so attached by their identity that they've acquired either from school or from some other acknowledgement place that they feel they are now uh, um, way beyond the human, you know. So it's very inspiring to hear both of you looking at the wisdom and that you have put forward here. So let's look ahead now to where education itself is headed. And this goes to the both of you, this last question. As we look to the future of higher education and workforce training, what's your shared vision for the next 5 years? How do you see AI and digital transformation shaping the path forward for Helms College and beyond? Either one of you may start.
Yeah, I'll go first and I'll let Dirk close out because he is truly the AI expert. He has been he's been such a great asset to our organization. Me personally as well, I'm utilizing that tool even more than I ever have before. But I think over the next 5 years, I see that AI is really going to be enhancing our ability to better support our students and staff.
Yeah,
I like that it will give us some predictive analytics to improve retention, staff retention, student retention, the ability to train our folks better on our policies and procedures, even to be able to understand them. Um, and then also it'll give us an ability to have micro credentials as well for our
yeah,
future students. It'll allow us to create programs we never thought we would ever have before in modalities that we never expected to have before, and really expand that lifelong learning pathway that all of us are living right now. And so I think Helms College is really positioned to become a national model for digital, um, culinary, allied health, business, all those areas have AI in them, even culinary. Now there's ovens where you can put a recipe in, it actually looks at the recipe and
yes,
determines what it needs to
right.
do, and it'll finesse it and tell you exactly what you need to do. And if
Hmm.
I'm at the chef and I want to add 2 more minutes, I can
Right.
override it.
Yeah,
But it's everywhere.
yeah.
AI is going to be in every single piece, skilled trades workforce. And we'll be able to do that because we can pivot easily and we have leadership that believes in mistakes aren't forever.
Right.
We can overcome those things.
Right.
If we don't make mistakes, we can't gain success either.
Right.
So I think that that's my vision for the future of education and workforce training with AI at Helms.
Right. Yeah. AI is no joke. It's touching upon every single aspect of the workforce and every other area that no one would even anticipate, but it's affecting everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned such a good point is a leader is often judged on their successes, but also their failures. And if you aren't failing, you're not innovating. And I think that's such an important point. And I wrote this down because it's one of my favorite quotes, and I hate to misquote people. So this is by John Dewey, the famous educator. My all-time favorite quote. He said, "Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself." And I think that relates to AI. AI is making education more accessible. Just like how the computer made education more accessible, AI is making education more accessible for the common man because AI is free. Can't tell you how many free resources there are for AI. So
Yeah.
it's having that paradigm shift in higher education where you don't have to be a high funded institution to use the latest and greatest practices. Because if education is life itself, then focusing on what can we do to better educate the community today, tomorrow, and in the future.
Wonderful. Um, this has been a great meeting here, a great session. I welcome the audience to please ask questions resulting from this excellent presentation by both Kristine. I can call you Chris, right? Is that okay?
Either, yes, I'll answer either one.
Right. By Chris and Derk. So please ask them questions. They are readily available. They are ready to answer your questions. They are um, they have the resources for that.
Minus 44. So now the 14x's should cancel out.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Kristine. My name is June Dufour. I learned a lot of both of you stated concerning when it comes to school because myself, I've been working in the school for approximately 20 years. I do realize that what's going on within the school when it comes to students, staff, and teachers. Retention is something that's really important for every institutions. And because of that, I do understand that in institutions, a high retention rate indicates that an institution is effectively supporting a student success. One of the questions that I have either for Derk or Chris or Kristine is that how do you measure what type of measurement that you apply in your school when it comes to retain your students? Because on my school, I do believe that they measure it to the academic period and to the next. I don't know what type of measurement that your school is using to retain those students. And also, is your school, because I do understand that retention is not one person, is the school as a whole. What type of strategies that your school use, either your staff, your administrators, your president, your teachers, combine together to have the students stay and graduate for the 4 years?
that from my lens, that's a retention initiative. I open the door for students. I pick up a piece of paper if it's on the ground. They see me do that. So it's leadership in action. It's knowing our students. It's asking them questions and even asking the staff, like, what's one great thing that happened today? And listening, I loved what Dirk had to say about, getting into the weeds about what didn't go well. And so when we have those, annual reviews, saying at the end of that annual review, if you were in my seat, what's one thing that you would do differently to support you in your role? How can I support you better? And asking that, at the end of every meeting, when we're meeting with folks. But I think it's retention, you're absolutely spot on. It's everybody's responsibility, it's everybody's role. And students don't necessarily worry about what the policy is. They don't worry about what your title is. If they see you and they trust you and they know you and you can help them, that's what they want. And so it's having the staff be trained to know that it might not be their responsibility to take care of that student at that moment, but it's always their responsibility to listen to them and walk them to who they need to speak with.
Yeah, one thing is, I was at the end of the conference and they had a little asterisk by it, and it said the person's name and his title was the Chief Failure Officer. So I said, okay, I have to go to this session. I don't believe what I'm reading. So there's a lot of companies that are employing Chief Failure Officers, CFOs. You think Chief Financial Officer, and they're getting paid a whole bunch of money. And actually, some educational institutions are employing Chief Failure Officers. And what the idea about that is, right? We all can be a little timid, right, to raise our hand in a meeting and to come up with an idea because our peers might say, golly, that's a stupid idea from Dirk. But what the goal is for the chief failure officer is to come up with the most outlandish solutions. And nobody is going to not expect something outlandish from the chief failure officer because his main goal is, and it sounds crazy, is to fail. But it's those one or two ideas that radically change how an operation and how an organization works. So when we talk about retention, especially student retention, we all probably in our mind have all these little snippets and ideas that sometimes we can be hesitant to speak up upon because it might sound a little outside the box or weird or unusual. So I like to say to the audience and people listening to this recording, either now or 10 months from now, is say those ideas, let your out loud brainstorming happening. And it's okay to informally take on the CFO role because if people aren't thinking of unusual ideas, things don't happen. They become normalized and no innovation takes place.
Derek, I must admit this is my first time hearing this chief failure officer. I always thought it stood for chief financial officer, but now I know it could also be that depending upon the outcomes.
Yeah, I do like the answer for the questions that I asked, but I have heard that I'm still waiting that, to find out how do you measure the retentions? Because in order for you to know your school drop out, you have to come with a measurement. How do you measure it?
Oh, we measure our accreditor requires us to measure our student retention. And so as a cohort comes in, they stay in that cohort and then they have to finish within 150% of their training time. in order to count as a graduated student. We have to hit 67% retention in each one of our programs. We can't fall below 67%. Our shortest programs are 150 hours. Our longest programs are 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions.
Absolutely.
Yes, anybody else, please ask questions.
Hi, great presentation, both. I was actually curious to find out what is your student population mostly? Is it adults who are out there in looking to integrate the workforce, or is it a mix or youth?
So we're a career and technical education school. Everybody is over 18. And they are more than likely somebody who has tried a conventional college and maybe didn't fit into that setting. Many of our students
Number 39.
are single moms that are trying to get a better life for their household and income. And most of our students are Pell eligible, which means that they fall into lower than middle class earnings for their household size. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And also as kind of a follow-up, I was wondering, how does your student population respond to the advent of AI and all of those technological pieces that are all now inserted into education? In addition to grappling with earning and education, now you have to make sure that you're up to date with what's going on with AI.
Yeah, I think that stems from relating the training to being career ready, is informing our students of this is what's going to be expected of you as a new employee in the job industry and sector, and we're preparing you for that readiness. And I think once you relate that to the curriculum, that we're just not teaching you to teach you something because we find it cool or we want to jump on the bandwagon because this is what everybody's doing. We always take a step back and saying, what is the skill set that the employers want and demand of graduates? And are we teaching that? And in today's age, that is not only understanding the personal skills and soft skills that's needed, but also that technology component that we need to teach our students. So relating it back to the industry and workforce, and then telling our students, we're training you this material or this curriculum because this is what you're going to face day one in your job.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, Claude, it was an
Dr.
absolutely pleasure
Yes.
for joining you this afternoon with Chris, or evening, shall I say.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for the great questions. I look forward to visiting your group in the future, and just thank you so
Yes.
much for all the work that you're doing.
Yes, please.
Very impactful.
I will conclude on that. That was an incredible conversation with the both of you. Two leaders redefining what it means to educate and empower students in a world shaped by technology and innovation. Their insights to the audience here on digital transformation, inclusive education, and workforce alignment remind us that the future of learning isn't just about technology, it's about people, purpose, and access. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Cyber Clinic podcast wherever you listen and visit cyberclinicpodcast.com to explore more episodes, resources, and upcoming guests. To the both of you, I cannot thank you more. I would like to see you again at a future time, even to attend as part of the audience next time. Not only that, and I'd like to one time, sometimes next year, see you again to see what work has been completed from the time this interview has taken place today, and to see what progress has been in that you have accomplished during that period of time, and then you can share with us, with the audience here, and what you have accomplished beyond that. And I'm sure, Chris, you're gonna graduate sometime, I don't know, next year.
I hope so.
So congratulations already.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. That was outstanding. Thank you, Derk, and thank you, Chris. That was awesome.
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Great. Have a great
That
night.
was awesome.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Bye.
That was awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.